Why?
Thank you, Saeed, for taking care of the arrangements yesterday.
No
I
problem.
went online yesterday, so I was able to fulfill my commitment.
All right. Thank you, Saint. All right. All right, we'll say good morning. Let's begin. So we're picking up page Kuf Tes, the second to last paragraph. So remember, again, we were discussing yesterday the idea that sometimes a person says that he believes in Hashgacha Pratis, but he doesn't necessarily believe, doesn't attribute his suffering, his challenges, or his setbacks to his deeds. So the Mechaber was discussing if a person has that type of erroneous mindset, it's a result, he says, of two different factors, or one of two possibilities. Therefore, the desired result from this conversation is that if a person says that he believes in Hashgacha Pratis, so if a person says he believes in divine providence, and again, the belief in Hashgacha means the belief that all is from God. shekal tsar v'hisaron sheyesh lo, he me'es habori yisbarach. Therefore, I will say believing in Hashgacha Pratis is not just believing in the good, things that go according to plan, but it's believing that everything, every tsar, every chisaron, every difficulty, every challenge is also from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, therefore, siba. Remember again, if it's from Hashem, then by definition, there's a siba, there's a reason. So there's nothing haphazard. Once I attribute, or once I say that the source of my life event is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that means that by definition, everything that occurs has a reason and a purpose. If it has a reason and a purpose, umamela chayiv hu lahagia lemaskana shavonosav him siba liyisurav. And I will say, therefore, by extension, what I have to say is, if everything is from God, and therefore everything is purposeful, I believe that somehow the reality of my life events, right, those things that occur are directly somehow related to my actions. That's when he says again, when he says avonosav him siba yisurav, literally means my sins are the source of my suffering, which I will say on a deeper theological level means I recognize that the events of my life are tethered to the actions, to my actions, to my way of life, to my decisions, to ultimately what I'm accomplishing or what I'm not accomplishing. Everything that God does is just. And therefore, again, by extension, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings suffering upon me, I believe that the point of all of these difficulties is somehow for the good. But what possible good could come out of suffering and difficulty? Lo oreroso. We'll say sometimes in life we need to be awakened, right? Sometimes we need to be woken up. The oreroso, sheitakin is massive, awakened to do what? Ultimately, again, to fix my actions. V'yashar chosov, to straighten my paths. V'yiskel atakles hatava ulachayim usharim. In order that ultimately, again, I could self-actualize, reach my intended purpose, and to lead an enriched life. So the Mechaber says so beautifully this idea that if I believe in Hashgacha Pratis, that means I believe everything is from God. If I believe that everything is from God, that means that by definition there's a purpose. If there's a purpose, then I believe that everything that occurs to me is somehow tethered and related to the actions that I am, to the way I'm living, to my lifestyle, to my decisions, and by extension, ultimately, again, that is Latova. How is it Latova? Because everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings about for me is somehow a wake-up call. Sometimes the wake-up call is a kiss on the head. Sometimes the wake-up call is a patch. Sometimes the wake-up call feels good. Sometimes the wake-up call doesn't feel good. But Lamaisa, at the end of the day, all of the events in my life are all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, therefore all intended for my self-actualization. Last two lines. Nimtza, Shadam Chachai Es Hayesod, Shein Yisruim Lo. Therefore, it turns out that a person who lives the principle that there is no suffering without iniquity. In other words, that all of my life, that there's no such thing as events that occur that are not somehow a mirror of my life activity. As I call Davar Shalom Mistader Kirtzono, Mekariv also Alaboria. But it's a very profound statement. If a person lives a life, lives this principle, that everything that occurs to me is a reflection of the way that I am living. Therefore, it turns out that every single life event that does not go according to my plan brings me closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does it mean, Rabbi saying? As page Kofyud, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu mikomash over Allah. Because it will say again, if I subscribe to this level of Amunah, that means that I believe that everything that occurs to me again is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has a siba, is litova, and therefore is somehow there in order to wake me up. Everything that I encounter in life is somehow there in order to allow me to wake up and self-actualize. Therefore, again, it turns out that if I live life with this principle, then everything in life brings me closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, when something doesn't go according to plan, I strive, I push myself to try to understand the nature of the suffering I'm encountering. What does Hashem want from me? How is He trying to bring me closer? It's a very profound and beautiful statement. This is what it means to have emunah shlema. We'll say, so interesting, by the way. because often we speak about emunah, and if somebody were to ask us to define emunah, sometimes it's a little bit difficult because it can be an ambiguous or amorphous term. Here the Mechaber defines emunah. Real emunah, what he calls emunah shlema, is the belief A, that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, B, everything has a siba, everything has a purpose. C, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves me. Everything is a manifestation of divine love. And therefore, D, real emunah, therefore manifests itself in my ability, I should say, D, that everything that occurs to me is somehow a reflection of my actions. The events of my life are reactions to the life I am living and the decision I am making, which by definition leads to E, which is also the manifestation of emunah, is the ability to use every life event to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I recognize that every life event, those that are nice, those that are more difficult, is this wake-up call from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to examine my life, to see how I'm living, ultimately again to get back on track and self-actualize. And he said, this is emunah. Person subscribes to this 5-part model. This is emunah shlema. Section. Yirah shamayim. Hatoar yirah shamayim. This term that somebody is a yirah shamayim, somebody fears heaven. Shayach rak la'adam she'oseh cheshbon nefesh b'chol yom u'misvad al chatav. So a person can only be a yirah shamayim, be someone who fears, reveres. We spoke about this before, but how you define yira? Is yira defined as fear? Is yira defined as reverence, as awe? And I've quoted before many times. Rabbi Yitzchak Avaditch brings down the idea. He says we often translate yira as fear. He feels it's a mistranslation. He feels at the end of the day, the real translation is reverence. This is why, because when you fear something, by definition, it places a distance, but you push it away, right? If I fear fire, it means that by definition, I'm not getting too close to the fire. Therefore, yira means more awe or reverence. In any event, for our purposes, whichever different definitions speak to different people. So whether you're defining it as fear, whether you're defining it as awe, the Mechaber says a person can only be a yirah shamayim if they do a cheshbon nefesh b'chol yom. If a person introspects each and every day, u'misvada al chatov, and a person goes ahead and admits, confesses, somehow tries to go ahead and reconcile his negative behavior, u'mevakish slicha, asks forgiveness for his mistakes and missteps, u'mishtadel l'takin es ma'aso, and he tries his best to fix his actions. Adam she'ino oseh voseh. So when we read that line, we say, sure, I do that, like on Rosh Hashanah. I do that on Yom Kippur. Maybe Chodesh Elul. The Mechaber says the goal is to do this every day. A cheshbon nefesh, literally a spiritual introspection. How did I live today? What did I do? What went right? What went wrong? To accept responsibility for that which went wrong, to ask forgiveness for that which went wrong, and to try my best to do just a little bit better tomorrow. He goes on, he says, Adam she'ena oseh cheshbon nefesh b'chol yom, eino yachol likro li'atzmo yireh shamayim. I will say, if I don't do a cheshbon nefesh, if I don't do this personal spiritual accounting, right, this introspection, then at the end of the day, a person can't call himself a yireh shamayim. Ki zeh mochiach shu chai b'hargasha shu bal habayis al atzmo. Nei milas eitzin v'cheshbon al ma'asov. Hu yochel la'asos ma shu rotzeh, ki ein b'yishiyah nishosam. It's actually quite amazing. The Mechaber says, doing a cheshbon nefesh each and every day, introspecting, contemplating, examining my deeds on a day-to-day basis shows that I am accountable to someone, that I have responsibility to someone, that I am answerable to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person doesn't engage in cheshbon nefesh every day, if I kind of just go, I live, I move on, but I'm never introspecting, I'm never cheshboning, I'm never contemplating, I'm never thinking about my deeds. What did I do wrong? What do I need to correct? Then ultimately, again, I feel like I'm not accountable to anyone. That I'm the Bava Basra. If I'm the Bava Basra, if I'm in charge, if I run the show, if I'm only reportable and accountable to me, then Lamaisa, why the need for a cheshbon nefesh? He goes on, Hu yochol la'asos ma shu rotzeh. Person can do whatever I want. Ki ein mi sheyanish also. There's no need for me to engage in any type of introspection because I am accountable to no one but myself. There's a certain circumstances, unfortunately, a person doesn't even possess the lowest level of Yirah Shamayim. The lowest level of Yirah Shamayim is what we call Yiras HaOnesh, fear of punishment. As I will say again, that is a very elementary level of Yiras Shamayim, of Yiras Hashem, because we're not supposed to operate. We're not supposed to operate because of fear of punishment. But at least it's a beginning. A person who doesn't do a cheshbon nefesh, doesn't introspect, doesn't contemplate, doesn't take accounting of that which I have done wrong in an effort to fix it going forward, A, demonstrates that he feels he's not answerable to anyone, and B, that he doesn't even possess Yiras HaOnesh, fear of punishment. One more paragraph, then we'll stop for today. Ki im haisa lo Yiras HaOnesh abshuta bioser hu haya mefachid lehi onish al chata. Because we'll say, at least if I possessed basic Yiras HaOnesh, at least I would be afraid there'd be a certain element of fear that I'm going to be punished for my sins. Ubevada haya ose b'choyom cheshbon nefesh, umispada umevakish slicha al kol chit or al kol avon sha'asa, v'kam haya mevakish umischane lihi notza lahaba min hachit. So we'll say, if I believe at least in Yiras HaOnesh, then l'maisa, again, a person would go ahead and at least introspect in an effort to recognize what I've done wrong because I want to escape punishment. If nothing else, I just don't want to get punished. And if nothing else, I just want to try to avoid this negative behavior going forward. Therefore, again, Lamana MS, Ha'adam zeh she'eino oseh cheshbon nefesh kol yom, rachok mimidas ha'tayo shatan biyoseh. Therefore, I will say a person who doesn't do a cheshbon nefesh each and every day is far away from what he calls the midas hayoshak tarabiyoseh, even the smallest midah of yashrus. Ki afilu ba'amos hamida shel ha'olam hazeh, kasher adam echad pogea ba'adam acher, umitzar oso. So we'll say, because again, even on a simple level, if I go ahead and I harm someone, im yishlo k'tzas yosher v'haginos, bevadahu poneh lav mavakish licho mechila mimenu. See, I will say, you can tell a lot about a person. Sometimes people get into an accident. Like something happens, they accidentally hurt someone. So I'll say, so there are two ways a person could respond when they accidentally hurt someone. What are the two ways? So number one, they could say, not my fault, right? So there are people, again, when something negative happens, the first thing they just want to be able to highlight is, it wasn't me. There are other people who say the first response to causing someone else pain is, I'm sorry. Now, maybe it wasn't my fault. That's possible. But Lamaisa, I'm sorry that I was involved in something ultimately that caused you pain. So we'll say, so this is just a derech ha'olam. If I caused someone else pain, I apologize. V'im kach, mechayeves midas hayosher, she'yima klape b'nei adam k'mosa kol shekin, she'mechayeves yikin kasher mitzar es ha'borei, she'mechayev. U'meitiv ito b'chol rega b'rega da'inu she'yifnei lavi v'akish licha. Tifra will say, if it's considered to be regular, what we'll call normative behavior, that if I harm someone, I hurt someone, I apologize. That's normal behavior. All the more so, I'll say, if I do something to hurt, quote unquote, or to upset the Ribono Shel Olam, of course, all the more so I go ahead and I apologize as well. And says the Mechaber, this ultimately, again, is what it means to be a Yorei Shamayim. Yorei Shamayim is someone who every single day conducts a cheshbon nefesh. What went right? What went wrong? When in terms of those things that went wrong, I own it. I own my mistakes. I apologize for my mistakes. I do tshuva for my mistakes. I ask forgiveness for my mistakes. And I try to figure out a strategy so as not to repeat those mistakes again in the future. Says the Mechaber, that's Yiras Shamayim. And again, we'll discuss how this particular mitzvah of Yiras Shamayim is going to be the first necessary step in the acquisition of that full picture of Emunah that we described just a bit earlier. So we'll stop over here. We'll pick up the Meretz Hashem bottom of Kof Yud tomorrow morning.
You start from You got my email?
Got your email.
Late break.
Oh Hashem, never too late.
Here.
Great. Did you want to sponsor today or tomorrow? After
It'll be tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the yard site's
Your side tomorrow. All right. All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Let's begin. So today's daf is Kufayin Days 172. And we're actually picking up on the last line of Kuf Ayin Aleph Amud Days 171b. Amarle Ravina the Ravashi. So our shir this morning is dedicated by the Elman family in memory of Michael's maternal grandfather, Hyman Koal Chaim Usher ben Naphtali, on the occasion of his 55th yard site. On the family Necham. Also said by the Lerner family, Le'ilu Nishmas great grandpa Joe Lerner, Yosef ben Yitzchak HaKohen, whose yard site is today. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Shem will have an Aliyah and the family a Nechama. So let's begin. A lot of beautiful Gemara today. So I'm going to read Ravashi. Ravashi Rav Kahana. Top of Kofayin base. Vaha inna. Below Ka'avdinan ha. Now today that we don't do this. Now we'll say, what's the this? So remember again, we spoke about yesterday how there are certain ways that a person could go at certain steps that can be taken in order to avoid ishtar, especially ishtar ma'uchar, a post-dated ishtar, from being used inappropriately. So the Gemara says, now that today, take these protective measures. Take a look at the top of the Rashbam. Top of Kofayin Beis of the Rashbam. Ela kasvinon ishtar ma'uchar stama. Rather, about that today we write a shtar ma'uchar, right? A post-dated document, stam. Also, Echrinu v'kasvinu, v'kasvinan tavra alayhu, b'shas piron, v'kasvinan zman b'shover, v'lo kasvinan le'stama, u'lo churva d'Rabbi Yossi lo chashen. So remember again, we discussed the idea that some of the ways in which one could protect themselves is in the shtar ma'uchar. You explicitly write that this shtar was written not on the date that it possesses, but rather again it was dated at a later date. We also said that one of the ways you could protect yourself is to go ahead and on the receipt, go ahead and write the date of the shtar itself. So the Gemara says we don't do any of these things. So to protect ourselves. So Amalei is supposed to listen to this. So the Gemara says, Amalei, second line, Kofai Bezim Dalif, Rabbonon Takune Takine. I will say, here's what we know. The rabbis set up measures, created systems through which a person could protect themselves from inappropriate usage of shtaros. Mandalo Avid, Mandalo Avid, who the Afsid Anafshe. But it's a very profound statement. Here's the reality. The Rabbanon created mechanisms through which you could protect yourself from the inappropriate use of a shtar ma'uchar. If you choose to use those systems, great. If you choose not to use those systems, then you have brought losses upon yourself. And if you brought losses upon yourself, then that's your problem, not the halacha's problem. As I said, it's a very profound statement that at some point in time, all the halacha could do is create for you the mechanisms through which you could protect yourself from loss. But I will say it's a very profound yesod. You have to take responsibility for the nature, trajectory of your life. Sometimes when things happen that we don't like, it's easy to blame anyone and everyone, especially Chazal. So Chazal said, listen, we've given you the mechanisms to protect yourself. If you choose to avail yourself of them, great. If you choose not to, then you take responsibility for any subsequent losses. Amaluhu Rava Barav Shila, Lahano Kasvi Shtarak Naisa. Let's listen to this. Rava said, individuals, whether they were Sofer individuals who were writing Shtari Akniyasa, and I was saying, what Shtari Akniyasa? Take a look at the Rashban. Lahanach the Kasvi Akniyasa, Kosve Shtar Matana, Shein Kasav Van Achrayis, Velo Asi Lemitraf Milukuchos. So we'll say shtar achrayus means any document, a document of conveyance. So the Rashbam gives an example of we have a shtar matana. The idea of a shtar matana will say that there's no achrayus. Right? If I give you a gift and I choose to bolster your ownership of that gift through a shtar, that gift doesn't come with achrayus. I mean, I could give a gift with achrayus if I want, but there's no implied achrayus in a gift. Rashbam, inami shtar mechira shekasaban achrayus shedina litrov lekuchos mishas mechira de'id mafki lehi lekola below shtara. Or about say the other possibility is that there is a sale of property, and that sale does come with achrayus, but it's not the document that generates the achrayus. Ultimately, again, it's the edim, the presence of the edim, and the fact that edim have a kol that generates the knowledge about the achrayus. So if you skip down a little bit to the Rashbam, he says, Hilchach, I yadi usun hahu yomadak misun be min hanosin matana, o mocher mechira, kasvu achshav osa yom shenastu hamatana v'mechira, di ikalamechash shema achrei king nasna la achar shelo kidid. The Bible says, so as we're going to see in the Gemara, Rava said to the people the following: if you are witnessing a transaction, for example, again, the giving of a gift or a sale, the date in the shtar should reflect the date of the transaction. Look back in the Gemara for just a moment. Someone who Rava bar of Shila hano kasi shtar kneasa ki kasavisu shtar kneasa. Oh, easily when you write a document of acquisition, which I will say just means a document that gives us the information about an acquisition or transfer that occurred. If you go ahead and you know the date that the actual transaction occurred, in other words, we'll say sometimes it's possible that when you're writing a shtar, the shtar is just there to highlight the fact that the transaction occurred. But it's possible that that the transaction occurred on a different day that the shtar is being written. So Rava said to these witnesses, if you know the date, the actual date on which the transaction occurred, write that date in the shtar. However, again, if you don't know the date, the ilo, kasvu yom de kamai sube. Ultimately, again, write the present date. In order, ultimately, again, that the document not look like a lie. So it's actually a very interesting idea. So what Rava was suggesting is, best is always to write the transaction date in the shtar, even though again, that might not be the actual date of the shtar. If for some reason you're just not sure, or the present date, I should say, if for some reason you're just not sure about the date of the shtar, the date of the transaction, just write the present date in the shtar itself. I want to point out something over here. The Rashbam, if you go back to that Rashbam, so I'll say if you just go straight across in the Rashbam, just go right in the Rashbam and skip down. Actually, you can just write, so he says, we see there's a period there. Aval shtari hava sheish bo achrayis lo yichtov ela yom shomid bo achshav. The im came havele mukdam upasel the asi the mitzvah lekuchos mizbar kasu. So also, if you notice again, this is why the Rashbam Dafka is setting up this kishtari akniyasa as dealing with the shtar that does not have achrayis, like a shtar matana. Because I will say the problem with Rava's advice is if we're talking about a loan and I lend Ruvain money, and that loan creates an encumbrance on Ruvain's property, if I put in an earlier date than the date in which we are currently standing right now, that's a shtar mukdam, and a shtar mukdam is possible. But because it's about a shtar matana where there is no achrayis, therefore Rav is just saying the shtar should reflect the actual transactional date, even if that is earlier than the present date. But if for some reason you don't know the transaction date, then halacha lamaisa just put in the present date. Fine. So the Gemara goes weiter. Rav l'safrei. Rav said to his scribes, Rafuna said to his scribes, Ki kaimisu b'shili, kasvu b'shili, va'af agav d'mesirin l'chu mili b'hini. So they said to the scribes the following. Good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. When you go ahead and you are in Shili, so write location of Shili in the document, even though you witnessed the transaction itself, or you were given the instructions in Hini. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. So we'll say this is 2, 4, 6 lines down in the Y lines of the Rashbam. Kia savisu b'shili, vatin kosvim sham, o saha'ir b'shtari mechira, o shtari hava, o shtari matana, o zichron edus, kisvu v'soch hashtar, makom shatem yoshin sham b'shas ksiva, kolomar, b'makom ploni kasavnu hach, mashra'inu b'makom ploni. We'll say, so the case over here is the following. The case over here is where the witnesses, or the sofer, whoever it is, witnessed the transaction or saw the transaction in what we'll call city A. But the shtar itself is being written E. So we'll say, so these Rabbanim, Rav and Rav Huna, are telling their scribes that when that happens, you need to record the names of both cities. You need to say, this document being written here in the city of Hini records the events that we saw in the city of Shili. The idea is you need both locations recorded in the document itself. So the Gemara says, ki kaimisu bihini, kasvu bihini. So too again, if you're in the city of Hini, right, we are writing this document while we are in the city of Hini. Even though what? You actually saw the actual transaction or were giving your instructions while you were in the city of Shili. Okay? So Amar Rav said this is all just teaching us about the halachos of shtaros. So the idea is, the idea that they're saying is there are two important locations where the shtar is being written and where the actual transaction is being occurred. Where it actually occurred. And in the event that those are two separate locations, they both need to be mentioned in the shtar. Amar Rava. Rava said the following. Hi man. Listen to this case. Hi man, the nakit shtar bar me'azuzi. Listen to this, Rabbi saying. I have a shtar. I lent Reuben $100. And what happens? All right, let's make it $1,000. I lent Reuben $1,000. So what happens? Va'amar shadhi nehili trei b'nei chamshin chamshin. I go to Beis Din. I say, Beis Din, do me a favor. Break this down for me into two $500 shtaros. They both say, now why do I want two $500 shtaros? Because they will say, I know that Reuben's going to pay me back in increments, two increments of $500 a piece. So therefore, I will say, remember again, we're in this whole discussion over here because we spoke about partial payment of a debt. With the original loan document, when you have partial payments. So we saw three machlokes. So I have a good Eitzah. My Eitzah is, go ahead, Beis Din, write for me two $500 documents. That's why when Reuben pays me back $500, I give him one document. The other document is still there. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Lo meshavin alovim. We do not do it. I will say, now take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Hi man dinokit. It's a 2, 4, 6, 7 lines down on the wide lines. Hayman dinakit, Malva dinakit shtar Malva bar me'azuzi. Va'amar lahem kisvu li trei b'nei chamishim, k'shei parli alova chamishim zos akra shtar shel chamishim, v'lo yetzarach lichtov shover lo kasvina shlo midas halova. What we're going to see is now a series of cases where one of the parties to the shtar wants to change the shtar. And I will say, what essentially, I'm going to give you the conclusion even before we start the Gemara, which is, you can never adjust or change anything to do in a document unless, of course, what? You have the explicit consent of both parties. Even if it looks like something is objectively beneficial to both of them, you still cannot change it without the explicit consent of both parties. See here, both sides. So case number one, I lent Reuben $1,000. I've got Shai says $1,000. I showed the Beis Din. Do me a favor. Give me two 500 stars. Right? Give me two 500 stars for this $1,000 star. At first glance, the logic seems to be pretty solid because this year was going to pay back $500 at a time. I'll give him one star at a time, and we'll be done. We don't have to start redrafting stars. So the Gemara says the following: my time. So we don't do it. Why? Meaning, when we say we don't do it without the express consent of the loga, of the borrower. My time on of drop on a milsa the nechalela malva the nechalela loga, because I will say ultimately again, the rabbis like to do things in a way that benefits both the borrower and the lender. So the Gemara says nechalela malva kadesh shiyakov leparo. So we'll say the idea over here is the truth is it's in the malva's best interest not to get two $500 shtaros. Why? Because if there's just $1,000 shtar, then what happens when the borrower pays back 500? So we'll say what does the borrower get when he pays back 500? A receipt, a shover. Also, we discussed yesterday that what happens when you're a borrower and you get the shover, it's in your best interest to what? Pay off the remainder of the debt as quickly as possible. Why? Because you're responsible for watching that shover. If something happens to that shover, you're going to be on the hook for another 500 for the same 500 again. Therefore, again, it's in the lender's best interest not to have two documents because that forces the borrower to pay back faster. And I will say it's in the lova's best interest for there to be $1,000 document. Why? Because when the borrower does go ahead and pay back 500, the shtar becomes pogum. The halacha is when we say a pogum shtar, the Rashbam brings down over here, that's whenever you hold a document that says I owe Reuben $5,000, Reuven owes me $1,000. And then we know that Reuven paid back $500. In order for me to collect the rest of the shtar, I have to take a shvuah. I have to take an oath. I have to take an oath. We'll say because why? Because the shtar itself is pogrom. The shtar is compromised because the amount written in the shtar is not the amount that's owed to me. We'll say it is considered to be in the best interest of the borrower if the lender has to take a shvuah before getting repaid. Why? Because that ensures the honesty of the lender. So you see the Gemara is pointing out over here is that it's not in the best interest of both of them to get two $500 shtaros. So the Gemara goes back to Vamarava. Supposed to listen to this. I have two documents of $500 each against Reuven. So I lent Reuven $1,000 in total. I have two documents of $500 each. And I go to Beis Din. I say, Beis Din, do me a favor. Write for me one document of $1,000. One document of $1,000. So what's the halacha? I will say, Lo mishavin alei. Beis Din will not do it. Why? Because Avad Rabbana Milsa Denecha Lehu Lamalva, Venecha Lehu Lova. We'll say because Beis Din will only do something that is objectively beneficial for the Malva and the Lova. And the reality is, over here, I will say that it is in the best interest of the Malva and the Lova that things remain as is. How so? So the Gemara says, Necha Leila Malva, Ki Echedelo Nifkam Shtare. So we'll say it's good for me to have two $500 shtaros. Why? Because Lamaisa this way again, when the borrower repays part of this debt, I still have a fully intact shtar, the other $500 shtar, which is not pogrom in any way, and therefore I don't have to take a shvuah to collect the rest. And I will say it's in the lova's best interest. Why? Because the lova doesn't have to worry about a shover, he doesn't have to worry about a receipt, and therefore he doesn't have to feel the lachatz to repay. Amar Ravashi, Hayman dinakit shtara bar meazuze, hili chad bar chamshin. So now listen to this. Listen to this third case. I lent Reuven $1,000, and what happens? I go ahead, come to Beis Din. Beis Din, do me a favor. Just write me one shtar for 500. I'll be asking for one shtar for 500. So we'll say ultimately again, I say, actually, I'm claiming that Reuven already paid me back 500. So all I need is $500 for the outstanding part of the shtar. If you look at the Rashbam for just a moment, so it's about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, about 14, 15 lines up from the bottom. Amar Ravashi Hayman dinakit shtar milva bar meazuzi va'amru l'safri ksovu chad bar chamshin me'ahuz man rishon shara para li hamosar v'kara shtar zeh lo kasvina le shtar achrina lo mizman rishon v'chosh ki mizman shal zeh yom ksiva ve'elach shema shtar parua huzeh v'yesh lo shover lelova alav v'yotzi hamilva al shtar shel chamishim v'yomer chov acher hu shel veis v'chav hamachar. So listen to this. I show up in Beis Din. I have a shtar for $1,000 against Reuven. I say, Beis Din, do me a favor. Just write me a shtar for 500, right? And that's it, because the assumption is I'm claiming that Reuven already paid back 500. So Rashi says we do not do this. The Gemara says, my taima amrinon hay mifra pare. It's possible again that Reuven paid back the entire debt. But if Reuven paid back the entire debt, Rabbosai, then why do I still have the shtar? Why do I, the lender, have the shtars? Because here's what happened. So what happens when Reuven repaid the debt? Reuven said, give me back the shtar. Because also that's what happens. When you borrow money and then you pay back your debt, the borrower has the right to demand the shtar in return. I said, I said, I'm so sorry, I lost the shtar, but here's good news. Because of Tavra, I'll go ahead and I'll write you a receipt. And I will say, what's the concern? The concern over here is that I will produce this $500 shtar, and when Reuven produces his shover, his receipt, I can claim that what? This shtar reflects a different debt. V'haraya, that shover was for $1,000. This was for $500. This shtar is for $500. Therefore, I will say, again, as I said to you even before we started these cases, the bottom line is, even in situations where someone shows up in Beis Din and says, I would like a shtar modification, and the shtar modification appears to be innocuous and does not appear to really negatively impact anyone, or even better, appears to positively impact both parties. Halacha l'maaseh, Gemara teaches me no shtar modifications without both parties present and with their express consent. Sorry. It's good. So we'll say that's the sugya. Mishnah. Shnei Achim, we'll say this is a great case. Shnei Achim, two brothers. Echad ani ve'echad ashir. One is rich and one is poor. This is not talking about spirituality over here. This is talking about, right, mamish, one is rich, one is poor. Now we'll say, now watch this. And what happens? Father dies and leaves behind the Yerusha. What's the Yerusha? Yerusha is a merchatz, a bathhouse, and a beis habad, or a press, an olive press. So I'll say, so what's the halacha? Now remember, just to understand the tension over here, the poor brother now sees in this Yerusha an opportunity for what? For revenue, to make money. Right? Remember again, to own a bathhouse is a big thing. You could open that up and charge money. Olive press is a big thing. You could allow people to use it for money. You have a vested interest in monetizing this Yerusha, whereas the older brother who is, or they all call him the older brother who's rich, has absolutely no need to monetize this Yerusha. So the Gemara says, so what do we do? Watch this. So the Gemara says, Asam l'schar haschar le'emsa. If the father used them as revenue drivers, right? Meaning if the father operated them as a business, so the halachas will say that the sons continue to operate it as a business and they split the profits. Asam le'atzmo, the father did not operate the bathhouse or the beis habad as a business, but rather again, he just used it for his own needs. So we'll say, so now what happens? So the rich brother is happy with the status quo. The younger brother wants to monetize these items. So what could happen? We'll say, the rich brother says to the poor brother, it's okay, just buy for yourself some slaves and they'll use the bathhouse. In other words, you could use the bathhouse also, just buy some servants. You see, they're both saying, under normal circumstances, an individual does not have the need to own a bathhouse. Right? I'll use the bathhouse, but I don't have a need to own it. That's a large individual use. So the older brother, the rich brother says, no problem, just buy yourself some slaves and they'll use it also. Now, of course, I will say the poor brother doesn't have money to buy slaves, or he says, or just buy for yourself some olives and you could use the olive press yourself. Which I will say is another way of saying, so what happens? Another way of saying, the Mishnah telling us that the older brother can say to the younger brother, tough luck, we're not monetizing this. We're not turning this into a business. Father used it for his private needs. We're going to use it for our private needs as well. And you can't force me to monetize this asset. So in other words, for the rich brother telling the poor brother, go buy some slaves or go buy some olives, is like the Talmudic way, the Mishnah way of saying, go fly a kite. In other words, I'm not changing this. We're not turning this into a business because that's not the nature of the asset. Therefore, even though you need the money from this asset, I am under no obligation to go ahead and monetize this asset. Fine. Let's say now we're switching back to shtaros. This is a great case also. Listen to this. So two guys who lived in a city. Yosef ben Shimon, V'shem Achar Yosef ben Shimon. So amazingly enough, right? Guy number one is named Yosef ben Shimon. Guy number two is named Yosef ben Shimon. So we'll say, so the issue number one is they are not allowed to lend each other money. We'll say, so why can't they lend each other money? So this person will say, because Yosef ben Shimon lends money to Yosef ben Shimon and then comes to collect money from Yosef ben Shimon, to which Yosef ben Shimon says, I'm the lender. Yosef ben Shimon says, no, I'm the lender. Therefore, again, the Mishnah says, and we'll discuss how they can lend money, but in order to avoid this, they don't lend money to each other. Look at the Rashbam. Actually, the remember again, under normal circumstances, he who possesses the shtar is the presumed malva, is the presumed lender. I will say in this case over here, what they could claim is, no, you lent me the money, and I repaid the debt, and you gave me back the shtar, or I gave you back the shtar. So we'll say because there's the same name, there's the inability to conclusively prove who is the malva, who is the lover. Furthermore, again, further, I will say the other townspeople are also prohibited from lending either of them money. Why are they prohibited from lending either of them money? Because I will say again, if you lend Yosef ben Shimon A money, Yosef ben Shimon A could easily say what? It was him. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Nimsa. Le'echad bein shtaros of shtaros shel Yosef ben Shimon parua. will say, let's say again, halacha l'maisa, someone had lent Yosef and Shimon money. And it says, and the document is stamped, paid, shtaros shneihen peruit. Therefore, I will say, because we don't know which Yosef and Shimon this applies to, both of their loans will be considered to be repaid. So we'll say, so the Gemara says, so kitza yasu. So let's say, I will say, again, you have to imagine cases like this came up all the time, where you have two people in the town who have the same name. So what does this mean? Two people in the town have the same name. They can't lend each other money. No one can lend them money either. Obviously, you can't operate like that. So what do? So the Gemara says, very simple, yishalishu. Yishalishu also means what? Even under normal circumstances, we just write Yosef and Shimon, your name and your father's name when identifying you. When you have a case like this, if Yosef and Shimon, just what? Add a Zayda. Right? Yosef ben Shimon ben Yaakov. So the Gemara said, "Them hayu mishulashim." Okay, they had the same Zayda, right? Same name Zayda. Yichtavu siman. I will say, then what you should do is in the document you try to siman. What kind of siman? Look at the Rashbam. Yichtavu siman. Yosef and Shimon shu guts. Right? Yosef and Shimon, the short one, or the lighter one, or Gichor. Right? Yosef and Shimon shu aruch o shachar. The dark one, the light one, the short one, the tall one. In other words, give some identifying. Things weren't as politically correct, in the times of the Mishnah, right? So you go ahead. So meaning, write a physical siman about the individual. So also the Gemara says, okay. So what happens if they look the same? Now they should look exactly the same. Then I will say ultimately again, and if one of them is a coin, you write a coin. So I'll say at a certain point, you understand the point of the Mishnah is at some point in time, you just have to find something that distinguishes them, whatever it might be. Now the Chabad will say have to be careful. As you something that distinguishes them, that lamaisa is something that will remain for. So for example, you wouldn't distinguish them by, let's say, writing their profession, right? Because people change professions. So obviously it has to be some type of siman that is inherent to the individual that ultimately allows you to go ahead and distinguish between the two of them. Fine. So says the Gemara, Hahushtara dinafak lebeidina d'Ravuna. There was a shtar. This is very interesting. There was the shtar that showed up in front of the Beis Din of Rav Huna. Now, obviously, meaning somebody showed up with this shtar. And what happens? Davik sivve ani ploni bar ploni levisi mani mimcha. Listen to the way the shtar was written. The shtar was written like this: I, the son of Yaakov, Reuven ben Yaakov, borrowed money from you. I will say, what's the chap in this case? The name of the lender, it is not written in the shtar. It just says mimcha, from you. Now, before you turn the page, look at the Rashbam, last Rashbam on the page. Go find Beis Daled. Who started the nafik lebeidina d'Ravuna? Have a muchsuk bo adam echad shayatoin ploni ben ploni akasu v'zeh shtar kasu v'chasu masruli. So we'll say this case over here is a guy is showing up in Beis Din, and he's saying, "I am the guy. I'm you. You understand? I'm the you in the shtar. I'm mimcha in the shtar." So we'll say, so meaning we're going to call him Ploni. Ploni shows up in Beis Din, and he's holding a shtar, and this shtar says, "I, Reuven ben Yaakov, borrowed money from you." So the guy who shows up in the Beis Din says, "That you in the shtar, that's me. That's me. V'haraya, I'm holding on to the shtar." So we'll say, listen to this. I'm a Beis. I'm a Ravuna. Mimcha afilu mereish galusa v'afilu mishavar malka. So Ravuna says, "I'm sorry, we can't allow you to collect from the shtar. Why? Because I will say we don't really know if you, the guy holding the shtar, is in fact the mimcha, the you in the shtar. You could mean the reish galusa. You could mean Shavar Malka, King Shapur. The idea that Rav Huna is saying is that what? Is that if the document just says, I, Reuven ben Yaakov, borrowed from you, but doesn't identify who the lender is, the you is, then Lamaisa, what Rav Huna is saying is just because a guy shows up in Beis Din holding that document, possession of that document is not enough proof that you are the you, that you are the anonymous lender who is named or not named in the shtar. Some of Rav Chisda, so we'll say Rav Huna is not as much paskening as much as he's kind of questioning out loud. How can we allow you, the guy who's holding the shtar, to collect this loan when in fact you are not named in the shtar as the lender, and we don't really know with certainty who the lender is. So the Gemara says, Amalei Rav Chisda l'Rabba. So Rav Chisda said to Rabba, listen, go and investigate this matter. Because tonight, Rav Huna is going to come back, right? Rav Huna already raised this question. So you have Rav Chisda saying to Rabba, go and investigate the matter so that you could report back to Rav Huna this evening and ultimately tell him what you think the halacha should be. So what happens? Rabba goes out on his information gathering mission. Dog, he inquired, or I should say he investigated, and he found the following idea. This time we learned in a brisa. Get sheyesh alav edim ve'in bozman. Let's say you have a get that has witnesses on it, has signatures of witnesses, but there's no date. There's no zman. So say we learned, remember from our Gittin days, we learned about the absolute necessity of a date for a variety of different reasons. So we'll say, what's the halacha? What's the status of such a shtar? Abu Shal Omer im kasuv bo girashtiha hayom kosher. If it says in the document, I divorced you today, get is kosher. Why did Rabbi say? Alma hayom hahu yoma dinafik b'mashma. So Rabbi say the chap over here is the following. If the get does not have a date in it, but it says that what? It says that what? That today I divorced you, then what Rabbi say? The get will be kosher. Why? Because we assume that today means what? Today means today. So what do you see? You see from here, Alma, Hayomahu, when it says today, Yoma dinafik be'mashma. We assume that today means the day, today, that the get is surfacing. Why does that matter for us? Hachanami mimcha me'ahu gabra dinafik mitusei yadei mashma. Therefore, again, Rav Huna said that halacha l'maisa, when you have a document, and the document says, I borrowed money from you, we assume that who is the you who was holding on to the shtar. In other words, we're both saying, what Rabbi essentially was saying was the following, that when you have certain ambiguity inherent in a shtar, we go ahead and we resolve, or we dispel that ambiguity through circumstantial reality. We dispel ambiguity through circumstantial reality. So if the get says Hayom Hazeh, today, and there's no date in the shtar, we assume today means what? Means what? Today, the actual date on which I'm standing. So to Rabbi posits, when the document says I, Reuven ben Shimon, borrowed from you, we assume that who is the you? Who is the you? The person who is holding the shtar. So we'll say we dispel ambiguity through circumstantial reality. Someone should write that down. I think it's a good formulation.
It's recorded.
Right? Good. It's recorded. Good. So advice is the following. The Dilma Abashol Klebelazasvile. So we'll say, so 1 second. So Abai says, well, maybe not. What he says by this man, and they get why. Because he holds a Rabbi Eliezer. What does Rabbi Eliezer will say? The Amr Ede Mesira Karsi. We'll say, remember again, maybe by the get, even if there's no Zman, the get is going to be kasha. Why? Because maybe Abu Shal holds like what? Or like who? Like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer holds Ede Mesira Karsi. Remember this machlokas, Ede Chasima Karsi, Ede Mesira Karsi. Ede Mesira Karsi means it is the witnesses who witness the giving over of the document who create the effectiveness of the shtar. Therefore, again, says the Gemara, maybe that's why, even if there's no date in the shtar, it's okay. The Edi Mesira will know ultimately, again, the date in which the shtar was given, the shtar was written, to which the Gemara says about Hacha, but here I say in the case where the lender is not named by name, but it just says Mimcha from you, Lechosh Lenefila. I will say maybe we should be concerned that what? The real lender, what happened? The real lender lost the shtar. If you have a shtar that says, I, Reuven ben Shimon, borrowed from you, I will say, what happens if you lose that shtar? What happens? Anyone who finds it could easily claim that what? That he's the lender. So the Gemara says, no, we're not choshesh that people lose stuff, right? We're not choshesh that ultimately, again, someone dropped the shtar and lost shtar. So we'll say, in other words, there's another way of saying that we assume a certain level of documental vigilance, right? We assume that if a person has a document that Lamaisa they're holding, it's good, right? Documental vigilance work. We assume a certain level of vigilance that people aren't going. If I lend Reuven money, I'm not going to lose that shtar. Therefore, again, we're not worried about it. How do I know that we're not choshesh ultimately again for someone losing the document? Listen to this. I'll tell you how. This nan shnaim shahayu be'ir achos. Shem echad Yosef ben Shimon. So let's remember again. This is our Mishnah. There's a city, and in the city you have two residents. One of them is named Yosef ben Shimon, and there's a second guy named Yosef ben Shimon. What's the halacha? They both say they are not permitted to lend money to each other, as we just spoke about before. And I will say someone else can't lend either of them money, either out of all the reasons we discussed before. But what can you see? I will say, but what do you see over here? That they would be permitted to lend others money. So it's like even though they can't lend each other money, because again, out of fear that it's not really going to be collectible, and even though others can't lend them money, because when you show up at Yosef ben Shimon's house, he's going to tell you what? I'm not the lender, I'm not the borrower, it's the other guy who's the other Yosef ben Shimon. But yeah, I will say, what do you see? That ultimately, again, they are permitted to lend others money. They're permitted to lend others money. So the Gemara says, but why is that? We'll say, if you are choshesh that people lose documents, then how can you allow either of them to lend money to others? After all, what? After all, why don't you say that if you let them lend other people money, when one of them shows up to collect, why aren't you choshesh that what? This Yosef ben Shimon is not the real lender. The other guy is the other Yosef ben Shimon is the real lender, but rather he dropped the shtar, and this other one found it. Rather, I will say, what do you see over here? You see that we're not choshesh for people losing their documents. We're not choshesh for that. To which the Gemara says, Abayi will say, well, there's a difference. L'nefila dechad lo chayshinan, l'nefila derabim chayshinan. I will say, to which Abayi says, fundamental difference in those cases, I will say. What's the fundamental difference? I will say, in the case, ultimately, again, of Shnei Yosef ben Shimon. So when we're saying choshesh v'nefila, because there are only two people who could potentially take advantage of the shtar. Who are the two people who could potentially take advantage of the shtar? Yosef ben Shimon 1, Yosef ben Shimon 2. In that case, the Gemara will say, listen, we're not going to let them lend money to each other, we got it. We're not going to let others lend money to them, we got it. But they can lend money to others. Are you not? So, but what about the fact that I should be choshesh? That's what? That maybe the Yosef ben Shimon who shows up with the shtar to collect is not the real lender. The real Yosef ben Shimon was the lender, lost the shtar, and the second Yosef ben Shimon. So that thing where it says, I'm not worried about that. But Rabbi says that's different than the case we're dealing with over here. What's our case? Our case, I will say, is where a guy shows up in Beis Din. And what does the shtar say? He's coming to collect his debt. The shtar says, I, Reuven ben Yaakov, borrowed money, love amos mimcha, from you. Say that even if under normal circumstances, you don't say chashinu nefila, in this case, you have to be choshesh for the fact that maybe the real owner of the shtar lost it. Why, Abosai? Because this shtar is so ambiguous. This shtar is so open-ended. This shtar could have belonged to, and because it could have belonged to anyone, therefore what? A guy showing up in Beis Din holding that shtar ultimately is not enough proof that he is the true malva, that he is the true lender. So we'll say, what the Gemara ends off with, we'll stop over here for today, but we'll say what the Gemara effectively ends off with is this really incredible fundamental case. So here's what we have. Remember, we begin ultimately with the case of Shnei Yosef ben Shimon. The Gemara then ends off with a real fundamental shaila. We'll say, what's the fundamental shaila here? The fundamental shaila is, if when you show up in Beis Din with the shtar, are you, and let's say again, you are not named in that shtar, do we assume that he who possesses the shtar is the rightful owner of that shtar? Or do we say, if it's so ambiguous, that we're choshesh that perhaps, again, the real owner of the shtar lost it, and because we can never ascertain who the real owner is, therefore the shtar is uncollectible. So do we say that possession is what establishes the fact that you are the malva, or do we need some additional inherent proof in the shtar? And Merit Hashem to be continued tomorrow.
Why in the mission doesn't differentiate? Why in the mission doesn't differentiate
between Yosef and Shimon by adding a wife's name. Yosef. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. I didn't feel like it was perfect to scream that out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm proud of you.
I'm working on myself.